subscribe, like, comment and share to support the channel. Thank you for the support. The Two Hidden Pieces, Carl and the Black Flame Ring. It has been 6 months since Nox has gotten them. He closes his eyes, regretfully. However, there hasn't been a chance to use them. A sign is hung on the wall, where it states that our boy, Nox von Reinharber, has been grounded. Nox finally lets out a deep sigh over seeing the sign. He returns to his room, stating that it wasn't like he was planning on getting into any trouble. He had even cleared the missing child's forest. Nox still couldn't believe that his family had decided to ground him instead of rewarding him. He turns around to ask Rona if she agrees with what he said. But Rona couldn't agree with Nox since she was a maid that belongs to the family. Her worry was that her salary would be reduced if she spoke poorly of the patriarch. Nox tells her that he swears upon his hand that her salary will be reduced if she doesn't act to his preferences. Hearing those words shocks Rona. She immediately agrees with Nox that the patriarch was being way too harsh. She questions how he could not even understand how Nox would feel. Nox finally takes a sit, thinking about how hard he had been working on adapting to this life, and living a pretty productive life while watching Carl's growth. But he knew deep down that he couldn't carry on like this, because his life was being shortened. Even now, a new notification window appears, telling him that his remaining life he has left due to terminal illness is 147 days. Frustration took over him after reading that. His hand trembled as he knew that this darn system is more interested in his life than he was. Nox decides that he couldn't take it anymore. He needed to go to his father to seek permission to get out somehow. A few knocks are heard from the door as Rona tells Nox that she was just about to warm up the bathing waters. Rodwell greets Nox as young master. He bows his head and informs him that the patriarch has summoned for him. Nox was taken aback to see that what he wanted had been granted. A flashback is seen where many dead bodies lay on the ground, covered in armor and swords. Blood is spilled everywhere as a dark atmosphere was felt. The patriarch, also known as Nox's daddy, was seen standing alone on the battlefield with his sword covered in blood. He is surrounded by the dead bodies of demons. He glances upwards to the sky where a worried expression on his face. More demons with wings could be seen flying around the dark skies. This was the night of slaughter. Red demons with wings appeared above him, screaming out horrifying sounds. They soon gathered together and dove straight down towards Nox's father. He grips his blade hard as a dark aura is slowly being released from it. With a determined look in his eye, he lets out a powerful swing from his sword that slices through all the demons that came looking for him. Back to the present. The patriarch was thinking about the demons that were swarming back there, the humans that were caught up in them. In the night of slaughter, the room he was in was filled with a nasty black aura that spread all around him. He slowly opens his eyes, thinking of that past memory as a disaster. The darkness that filled the room suddenly went inside of him, as if he was holding onto the powers of darkness. The patriarch knew that someday, one of his sons will probably learn the supreme black sword, but he couldn't rely on probabilities. He needed talent, that is certain, because one of them will have to kill him. Rodwell soon appears in the room. He informs the patriarch that the young master Nox will be here soon. The patriarch noted that Nox was late, so Rodwell should send him in here right away. He recalls the missing child's forest as a place that even he was not able to clear. To think that Nox was able to clear that place, the patriarch thought that it would be appropriate to reward him, but the reason he was late in rewarding him was because of the strong objections of the family's vassals. The vassals didn't believe that Nox, who was a good-for-nothing, had changed, and began an investigation to check if Nox had really cleared the forest. The patriarch could be seen holding onto a document of the complete investigation. He looks at it, knowing that he couldn't ignore the opinions of their family's vassals, so the investigation was a necessary process. A hand soon appears on the room's door that catches his attention. Nox had finally arrived. He bows his head to pay his respects to the patriarch. The patriarch tells him to rise, to which Nox agrees with. He informs Nox that he should have already known that his actions were wrong. Nox says yes, but the patriarch tells him that it was his job as the patriarch to give credit when credit is due, even if the credit belongs to a good-for-nothing. That was why the patriarch had summoned Nox, to discuss his reward. He tells Nox that he would grant him one request. The patriarch was willing to fulfill just one request of his, no matter what it is. Nox was taken back by the sudden reward. He couldn't believe that the patriarch would be willing to give him anything he wanted. Even to Nox, who had played tons of hours on Inner Lunatic, is seeing Theo giving a reward for the first time. Theo is the name of the patriarch. Nox thought about how he was usually authoritative and stern, though But Nox felt that someone had just shot him in the head, but again he felt that it was more like someone just slashed him from behind. He looks at Theo and wonders if he would truly grant anything he wanted. Anything. I'll grant you anything, as the Patriarch of Reinharber, said Theo as he stood up. He continues to tell Nox that the promise to grant him anything. He swears it upon the long-standing history of the Black Sword. Nox didn't think that he was serious but guessed that that was who he is. But Theo reminds him that if the case of his request was too ridiculous, his evaluation of him will change, so he trusts Nox to not do something that foolish. Nox agrees with Theo and asks to be given some time to think this over. Theo agrees with his request and permits Nox to leave the estate, but warned him that he was not allowed to get into trouble like he did previously. Yes, Patriarch, Nox said with a smile after being granted back his freedom. Theo reminds Nox to always bear in mind that he is a part of the Reinharber family. The next day, members of the family are seen gathered outside the mansion. Talia was wearing a beautiful green dress. She tells Nox that they would meet at Eldian Academy the next time they meet, but Nox was reluctantly to reply back to her. He simply turned his head away. Talia continues to pester Nox, saying she would see him again okay, but our shy boy still doesn't reply and turns his head again. Rodwell cuts in to inform Nox that he ought to answer when a lady asks him a question. Nox lets out a sigh before agreeing to Rodwell. He tells Talia that they would meet if she becomes a full-fledged knight before that. Hearing those words suddenly gave Talia a body full of motivation. She wonders as in not getting all scared even after seeing a super huge spider, said Nox. Talia became shy and blushes hard after hearing that comment. She sends a quick punch into Nox's stomach, causing him to spit out. He thought about how he should have said wolves instead of spiders would have been better. Talia continues to tell him that once she returns after becoming a full-fledged knight, he should prepare his head for her. This sends shivers down Nox's spine as he wonders why she wanted his head. He thought about how she was intending to kill him. Emma cuts in to thank everyone for everything, especially to young Master Nox. Nox wonders what a maid of the Still and her family had to thank him for. Emma reminds Nox that she wanted to thank him for saving their young Miss Talia. Nox hears this and lets out a deep sigh, saying that it wasn't like he was intentionally saving her. Stop bothering me and leave already, were the last words Nox told them as a carriage is seen leaving the estate. Nox continues to watch as they left, thinking that since one person had already left, it made him question why he was slowly getting used to this weird life. He didn't know the exact reason, but he felt that he was kind of enjoying it. A notification window appears, reminding Nox that his remaining life he has left due to the terminal illness is 146 days. Nox was taken by surprise by this reminder. With 146 days left to live, he knew that he had no time to rest. A few days later, Emma tells him that he needed to get a new maid and new servants. Nox thought deeply about the new maid for a moment, but Rodwell soon enters the room and greets him. Nox asks him what was the matter. Rodwell informs Nox that the Eldian Academy has sent a maid in training to assist him. A young lady with green hair appears in a maid outfit. She bows her head to Nox, introducing herself as his exclusive maid from today onwards. Her name is Jitri de Lovilia. Nox took a moment before introducing himself. He scans her windows as it's reflected in his eyes. She was 15 years old, species human, main element Earth, but the most important thing in the window was the present situation. It was about monitoring player based on orders of Theo von Reinharber. A new window appears with the update. It now states that Nox has 140 days to live. Nox was feeling anxious because he knew his time was limited. It feels like it goes to darn fast. The only positive thing here would be that he was actually growing pretty fast despite having such a severe penalty. Nox looks out the window. He knew that he will soon be admitted into the Eldian Academy too. Rona cheerfully reminds Nox that 2 months from now, he would finally start to attend the Eldian Academy. She questions him about whether he was feeling nervous. Nox questions her back on whether she was happy about the fact that he was leaving this place for the academy. The sudden question startles Rona. She started to tear up and tells Nox that she was already starting to miss him. Nox felt something was off and tells her to not overreact since he was going to reduce her salary. Rona's face immediately turned normal. She salutes him and agrees to his command. Nox could only think that he didn't even have time to bully her now. Within the next 2 months, if Nox didn't increase his stats by even a little, he definitely won't be able to survive inside the academy. Eldian, the Empire's best academy, is where monstrous strong cadets from all over the country gather. After surviving that place and entering the main story, Nox must play the role of the villain, Nox von Reinharber as well. But Nox held a painful expression on his face. He knew that everything was so tough. The next part is a repeat from before. For some reason, Rona then informs Nox that he needed to get a new maid and new servants. Hearing this causes Nox to think about something. Rodwell enters the room and greets him. He informs Nox that the Eldian Academy has sent a maid in training to assist him. A young lady with green hair appears in a maid outfit. She bows her head to Nox, introducing herself as his exclusive maid from today onwards. Her name is Jitri de Lovilia. Nox took a moment before introducing himself. He scans her windows as it's reflected in his eyes. She was 15 years old, species human, main element Earth, but the most important thing in the window was the present situation. It was about monitoring player based on orders of Theo von Reinharber. She looks at him and tells Nox that she would do her very best to support him, but Nox knew that they wouldn't let him leave this place comfortably. This brings us to Theo von Reinharber, one of the biggest villains and one of the strongest beings in the world. When wondering about how he rose to his current position, many ask if it was from his swordsmanship alone. He's so skilled that few doubt that that's the case. However, the main reason that Theo was able to take his place as the top of the Reinharber family was because he was suspicious of everything and everyone that was around him. Theo looks at Jitri, telling her that he has great expectations for her this time around. She looks down and agrees to his request. Theo tells her that he had heard that she had been pushed back in the line of succession within the Lovilia family. He continues to say that if she does well this time, the Reinharber family will spare no efforts to support her in the succession. Jitri agrees to assist young Master Nox with all her heart, but Theo tells her no. She looks up at him, and could see a dark aura that covered him from head to toe. This sent shivers down her spine. She changes her instruction and pledges that she would monitor Nox strictly, and to report every single thing back to him. Jitri finally left the room and stood against the door, her heart pounding quick after meeting with Theo. His last words to her was to not forget who her master is. She unbuttons her collar to take out a golden item. She looks at it with concern in her eyes, knowing that from this point on, she mustn't waver any further. The lights in Nox's room continues to be shining. He lays back on his bed, thinking about the spy that was Jitri. He thought about how Theo probably wanted to confirm whether the person within him was Nox or not, since demon possession is something that happens quite frequently within Inner Lunatic, and Nox is a character that had his body stolen by the #1 demon, Ball, in the original storyline. But Nox thought that it was fine as long as Theo doesn't find out who he really was. But a saddened expression still hung onto Nox's face. He thought of Jitri as the problem. Jitri de Lovilia, while she was not involved in the main storyline, it'd be a waste to throw her away like this. Originally, she was supposed to become the next head of the Lovilia family, but her father and mother were killed by her uncle, and she lost her position as the next head of the family. What happened next is obvious. In the end, she became a maid of the Reinharber family and managed to escape from her family. She looks cheerful on the outside and is always smiling, but the inside of her is so jaded and rotten, a character that is on the verge of breaking, and so her last decision would be that before the first part of the main story starts, she would commit the big no-no. If you need help, guys, reach out. Nox continues to ponder about what he should do. He thought about creating a change to the storyline by saving someone who ought to be dead. Would that be the correct decision? Despite knowing that doing that would mean he would put a noose onto his own neck. The next day, Rona and Jitri stood side by side. Nox informs them that they would be hunting monsters within the forest in the territory, so of course the both of them would be following and helping him. Rona was alarmed to hear that while Jitri continued to stand still. Rona began to tremble with her words about hunting the monsters within the territory. She tells Nox that she was going to take a leave of absence because she was sick, but Jitri simply responded with, "Understood." Rona grabs onto her hand, telling her that she couldn't just agree to everything. Nox thought about how it was normal for a maid to be sacred of hunting monsters. It was a ridiculous request after all. Nox could see that Rona's hands were still trembling and thought about Jitri's immediate response to his request. Nox gave off a smile before informing Rona that he knew that she had used up all of her leaves. Rona became alarmed after hearing that. Nox then tells her that she was not allowed to take a sick leave today. Rona became even more scared and wondered how he could do that to her. Nox reminds her that he was a good-for-nothing, and tells her that if she doesn't follow what he says, he would reduce her salary, so he wanted to go easy on her by reducing maybe half of her annual salary. Tears stream down her face as she finally caves into his request. She cries and asks whether he wanted her to bring along a bow or a sword. Nox laughs at her response as Jitri calls out to him. She asks him if she could inform Rodwell that he would be leaving the estate before she started to prepare. Nox thought about how she was right about that, but his top priority would be increasing his lifespan. Since he was now free to go anywhere, the group could now be seen galloping through the forest on their horses. Theo watches them from his office window. A serious look was all he held. Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.